Let's get down to business. Thanks for coming out tonight.
I wrote me a manual, a step-by-step booklet for you to get.
Oh, I make money moves.
You can't see me, my time is now.
What up? Welcome back to another edition of the MassiveJoes Show podcast, episode number 14. My name is Joseph Mencel. I am your host, CEO of MassiveJoes. I'm joined by my apostle, MassiveJoes General Manager.
Apostle, you've been talking that up before we've gone on here about the new
I've got a different one for you every episode, mate.
Yeah.
But I think apostle is suiting for this
Do you
episode.
want to show the viewers what I look like, or are you not fucking putting a camera on me?
Yeah, no, you've missed out on the camera this time.
You've got
kind of like...
You've got to give me all three cameras.
If you're listening to this on your favorite podcasting platform, you're
filming fucking Danny on a Nokia 3315. You haven't even given me one.
But if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you'll notice that Neve is kind of ghosting at the moment.
Yeah.
He's not even here.
Good head for radio.
He does. Very good head for radio. We are joined by a very special guest on this episode 14 of the MassiveJoes Show podcast, and that is, of course, my good man, Danny Kennedy.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Danny, what's happening, man?
Man, heaps is happening. We just got in a good session last night, and I just got
did.
a tour of the HQ.
Yeah.
And I'm ready.
Did you see the old one?
I did.
Yeah.
I did see the old one. I think it might have just been before you guys moved.
We were discussing this last night. We had Danny fly in, well, it was supposed to be yesterday afternoon, but, flight delays and shit. So last night came in and yeah, it was like 2 years.
I remember because we trained
at
Anytime Fitness Mile End.
Mile End, correct.
Yeah, but I remember that. But obviously, it's I don't know what year's what now and when we're here. And
Time flies when you're having fun, man. Danny, for the listeners and the viewers who may not have had the privilege of being introduced to your fine self in the past, introduce yourself, man.
Introduce myself. So yeah, as obviously my name's Danny. That's probably a good start. So
always a good start.
I'm a fitness trainer from Melbourne. I live in Melbourne now.
Yep.
I do online coaching as well.
Yep.
Consulting. I run a podcast myself. So I guess my time at the moment is kind of split between personal training, online coaching, podcasting, and then also helping out with a new app with the girls from Keep It Cleaner, Steph Claire Smith and Laura Henshaw. So I grew up in the country, so Horsham in country Victoria, and moved to Melbourne for basketball initially. And then after a couple of years there, had a surgery on my ankle, and then never really went back to basketball, and always had a very intense, I guess that's probably a good word, interest in health and fitness, and really kind of stepped it up after that surgery and haven't looked back since. So kind of everything happens for a reason, I guess, and here we are. Led me to where we are today. Great opportunities, meeting good people, and just trying to grow my brand and help as many people as I can.
Yeah. Basketball led you to the health and fitness industry. We've heard that one before.
And an injury.
Yeah, and an injury.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Playbook.
Exactly.
Health and fitness playbook.
No, absolutely. 100%. So what we like to do, the viewers who are long-time listeners of the MassiveJoes Show podcast would know we try to cover fitness and business in this podcast. If you're listening for the first time, that's what we try and do with this podcast. And when we have guests come on the show, we like guests that have experience in both sides, and a bunch of experience in fitness, a bunch of experience in business, and you obviously tick both of those boxes through your fitness journey, but then also through your business journey as well. And you kind of talk yourself down a little bit, but you're probably one of the best known personal trainers in Australia, at least. And your podcast is one of the most listened to podcasts in Australia as well. So Danny's, he's kind of a big deal.
I'll make sure I give you that cash for saying that. After the episode started, I've got it in my wallet.
Under the table. That's why I'm kicking you under the table. So I'm excited for this podcast because I think that we're going to add a whole bunch of value to people through your personal experiences. So just let's start with fitness.
Yep.
So you've been exposed to fitness, at a young age through basketball. Injuries kind of, come along and derailed that, which, is pretty common. How people get into the fitness industry is usually through a performance sport somehow. Yeah. And then the performance sport, either it's injury or they lose interest or whatever it is. But that's kind of, the opening of the door.
Pathway,
to get into the fitness industry. So how do you go from, like talk us through it. How do you go from basketball injury to, I actually want to do this?
Yeah, so I think I started lifting when I was about 15 or 16 and
For basketball?
for basketball. Yeah. And like I hated it initially.
Yeah.
Which is so weird to think about now. But initially I just had no interest in it. I was just doing it because I got told to do it.
Yeah.
And then quickly it fell, like I just basically fell in love with it. Like it was, I think because I'd always done basketball so much and I was also playing football at the time.
Yeah.
Those two things had just taken up so much of my life, which I loved. But then the gym was almost became like a bit of an escape and something that was just completely different to everything else. So I really enjoyed that. And you know, when I moved to Melbourne initially, like I was same height as I am now, and I was about 25 kilos less.
Yeah.
But I'd been lifting for like 3 or 4 years. So in my mind, I thought I was shredded.
Yeah.
Which I was, but I also weighed like next to nothing. Like if it was windy, there was a chance I was going to blow away. And you know, it was just like through trial and error, doing all the wrong things in terms of training and nutrition, and almost like borderline having almost having an eating disorder, I guess, like a very unhealthy relationship with food and overtraining, undereating, and it was only when I moved to Melbourne that I kind of took it a bit more seriously in terms of building my knowledge on training and nutrition and like actually going down the evidence-based kind of science-based route in terms of training and food. So once I built up that knowledge, obviously started trying to use those methods on myself and started to see more results and was still playing basketball, like I said, for the first 2 years in Melbourne, but just loved the gym, like just everything about it. Like if you went through like any of my social media stuff, there was like barely any basketball stuff. It was all just like gym related stuff. I'd go to all the expos, watch all the YouTube channels, all that type of stuff, and was just obsessed with it. And then when I had my surgery, obviously that was kind of like extremely disappointing in terms of basketball because I was pretty set on just playing basketball. Like I had no intentions of doing anything but basketball.
Yeah.
But while I was in year 12, I'd done my personal trainer certificate just separate, just online, like over 12 months, just kind of did it by myself just so I could have it. And before I'd moved to Melbourne, I'd done a little bit of gym instructor work back in Horsham. Just kind of dabbled with it a little bit, but basketball was a priority. So once that was kind of taken away, I was like, well, this is a great opportunity now to step into the gym and start working as a PT or at least get a bit of experience, a bit more experience. Yeah. And quickly realized that, you know, like I loved that lifestyle and I also loved being able to help people face to face. But then at the same time, because I'd started to see results myself and gone from extremely skinny to a little less skinny, people were asking me what I'd been doing, which is then kind of opened up the door to helping some friends with meal plans and training programs and stuff. And initially it was just literally like, this is what's worked for me. This is what I've been looking into. Try it yourself. And they started to see results. And then that kind of also led to the online coaching side of things as well. But after a couple of months of kind of working as a PT, there was kind of no chance I was going back. I saw it as a, you know, potentially a way to build a really good career. And like I said, I just loved it. So, it kind of changed pretty quickly. I went from being devastated about not being able to play basketball to not really missing it as much as what I thought I would. Yeah. And lots happened since then, but that was kind of what started it all.
So how do you go, because it's a common situation as well, right? Is, you know, people are introduced to resistance-based training and, you know, fitness as we know it now through a performance-based sport, and most of the time they hate it, right? They love playing the sport, love the practice, love the training, but the strength and conditioning piece is like not that exciting. Pretty much.
It's like you do it because you have to.
No, 100%, because it's going to help you perform better in that performance sport. So like, how did you go from that mindset to, man, I fucking love training, I love the gym? Like, what was the catalyst for that?
I'm not 100% sure, but as I said, like I was very thin. I'd always done, like I was naturally good at running, very much like an ectomorph type body. So going in the gym and actually even though I was still skinny, I was still building a bit of muscle mass and getting stronger. And I think like most people that have been into the gym and started lifting weights, like my self-esteem and confidence and stuff just started to grow. And it was something that I could really focus on. And because I'd come from basically just team sport my whole junior career, having something where it was like up to me, like everything relied on me. Like if I put in the work, I was going to see the results. And eventually that kind of what led me down the path of competing, like that individual sport which was just everything relied on whether or not I did the work. And that kind of really appealed to me. And the whole discipline side of things and which is kind of carried over into business, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but like knowing that, you know, other people probably aren't doing the work that I was doing. Like I was training for basketball that often. So then fitting in the gym would mean I'd be up before school to go and get it done at 6 a.m. or get it done in my lunch break, or if I had spares in year 12, I'd go and get that gym session done. And I was just kind of addicted to that feeling of putting in the work that maybe others weren't, and knowing that each time I did it, ultimately it was just better in myself and it was up to me. It didn't really have anything to do with anyone else. Whereas all the team sport stuff did. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't necessarily, just because you put in the work doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see the results if you're in a team sport.
Was your initial training more performance based with your basketball background, or was it more just physique? Let's call it more bro split bodybuilding, or was it more basketball?
Yeah, the lower body stuff definitely was. Like I dabbled a fair bit with like the whole plyometric stuff and a bit of strength training with the lower body. But to be honest, it was pretty like hit and miss really. Like I was just going in there and just playing around a bit and getting programs off other people I knew. And I saw a trainer at the time who set me up with a program which was kind of similar to the Westside Barbell type of stuff. But to be honest, I didn't like it. Like I didn't, that type of training didn't really appeal to me. And it's funny, I talk about it now, but like back then I got given a program that was like strength based. So, you know, rep ranges between 5 and 8, for example. And I remember just looking at that going like, there's fucking no chance I'm doing that. I'm like, that's not going to build muscle. Like I'm not working hard enough if I'm only doing 5 reps. So my mindset was very, very much still on that more work is better. So like I was doing a heap of reps, lighter weight, just kind of smashing myself every time I went to the gym, which definitely helped build up a foundation. But in the end of the day, like it wasn't until I really started to like actually train properly and focus on progressive overload and all that type of stuff that I saw good results. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have it any other way, but there was definitely, I could have saved myself a lot of time early on.
Always.
Which is why I enjoy doing what I do now. Like getting someone come to me and say that I'm just starting out at the gym or I want to get fit or whatever, me being able to go, all right, avoid all this shit and let's focus on this. Might save you a year, 2 years of stuffing around, which in the end of the day kind of brought me to where I am now. But if I can help people avoid that, it's absolutely, it's a good feeling.
That's the experience, right? So what does your training split look like now?
My training split now is relatively high volume. I'm currently doing a 5-day split. So Monday, Tuesday is kind of my strength or heavy days. So I do an upper body day and a lower body day. And then the second half of the week go into more volume and hypertrophy based training and do kind of upper body push, legs and an upper body pull. So hitting each muscle group twice per week. One day being a lower rep, higher intensity day, and then the other day being a higher volume, lower weight.
And you found that you know obviously works best for you right now, right? Yeah,
it works best for me right now. Like I enjoy that style of training. I enjoy being able to kind of do like two different styles of training in the same week. Keeps it interesting. One of the questions we always get is like bro split or push pull legs, and you're kind of like, you know, doing fucking everything. Doing all of it,
Strength training, hypertrophy, bro split, hitting everything twice a week.
I think my body type probably responds better to a little bit less volume and more intensity because I do burn through calories so much, but I find it hard to I find it hard to back off a bit. So ideally I'd train 7 days a week. But I think in terms of making progress, it's probably not ideal. So the 5-day split sometimes turns into 6 anyway. Just go and hit some basically whatever I feel like on the day on that 6th day. But for now, I'm trying to get everything twice a week and one strength day and one hypertrophy day.
So what do you think is ideal?
I honestly think, like in my opinion, as a natural lifter, I think that if I'm doing chest on a Monday and then I'm not doing chest again until the next Monday, I think that I will have well and truly recovered in time to have done it again before then. In saying that, I think that by doing a little bit less volume on that first one and then doing a second one where you're doing similar amount of volume but trying to push more weight, for me works better because over the span of that week, I've done more than whether I've just gone in and just smashed chest in the one session. Chest being a good example, like it's probably one of my weaker areas. So like last night's session that we did was an awesome session.
We train chest.
Yeah,
Yep.
we did. And I struggled to keep up. So like if you look at last night, for example, like the first couple of lifts, I was all right in terms of what weight I was pushing.
Yeah.
As the session went on, that weight dropped off a lot and I fatigued very quickly. Whereas if I'd have gone in last night and done, let's say, a little bit less volume and focused more on pushing a bit more weight, and then a few days later gone in and done a similar amount of volume again and focus on pushing the weight again, over the span of the week, I feel like I will have pushed more. Whether or not that's optimal or not, I don't know. That's my opinion.
It's all about just what muscle fibers you're recruiting and your endurance, really, I guess, when it comes down to it. I guess I'm the same as well, is when you're doing, because I do push-pull legs normally myself.
Okay.
So yeah, that's obviously why I can be stronger in the first two exercises, and then towards the end when Joe starts doing all his flies and stuff is when I really fall off. Whereas Joe does, that's what Joe does. Is Joe will go in and do 40 working sets for each muscle group, and
it's funny because I enjoy that style that we did last night. So it's trying to find that balance between what's more enjoyable and what's going to get me the results. Yeah, which is kind of what I think, which is why I like that strength day and then a high rep day. So like that first day of the week where I'm doing the upper body, I might only do 1 or 2 chest movements and really focus on pushing weight. Yeah. And then that second session in the week where I'm doing upper body push, I'll just go in and do a heap of volume. Yeah. And get my 1 or 2 compounds out of the way early. And then whatever I feel like on the day, just kind of get a lot of volume in and just enjoy it. Because in the end of the day, like I say this to my clients all the time, like the most like optimal program means jack shit if you don't enjoy it or don't stick to it. So like I think enjoyment still has to be up there with one of the main priorities.
If it fits your lifestyle, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You got to, if you're trying to do things that are abrasive to the lifestyle you want to live, that therefore are not enjoyable to you, you're not going to be consistent with them for long enough to get the results that you want to get.
That's it. Comes down to everything, though, even with diet. If you give someone a shit diet that's chicken and broccoli, they're not going to stick to it for very long. Whereas if you give a diet that someone enjoys, or more food, obviously to an extent, a diet they enjoy, they're much going to stick out to it for a longer period of time. Whether if you give them a workout and they absolutely hate it. I mean, if you go and give someone battle ropes every single day and they fucking hate battle ropes, or give someone burpees and they hate burpees, they're not going to kick on.
They stick to it.
And especially you, even as a trainer, if you've got clients that are adamant that they hate burpees, and every day you come in, you smash them with burpees, you're going to lose a client pretty quickly after a while. So
yeah, I think particularly with nutrition, that's important in terms of enjoyment. Like obviously, a lot of people have different opinions on like flexible dieting, for example. But for me, like the demographic that I work with mostly, with the exception of like the athletes and stuff that I might work with, even with them, like to varying degrees, they're still following like flexible dieting. But for the general population or whatever, I'm just like, what is the point of sticking to this meal plan that you hate, that you in your mind are going like, I've only got 6 weeks left until I can finish this shit. Yeah. Or me saying to you, all right, follow these macros roughly, try and fit in the stuff that you enjoy. Don't cut out the things that you enjoy most. And over the span of the next 12 months, you're going to see far greater results. And the same with training, like you just said, like if you hate burpees, why do it? Or even things like, squats to a degree. Like if you're not a power lifter and you have to squat, if you're just someone that goes into the gym and wants to see results and you hate squatting, then don't squat. Yeah. There's so many other exercises that you could be doing that are going to stimulate the muscles and expend energy that you can do that you do enjoy. Yeah. That'll ultimately still get you to the same end result that you want to be at. Yeah.
But and we have this discussion quite a bit, Neve, about, if it fits your lifestyle thing and, doing things that you enjoy and doing things that are not abrasive to the lifestyle you want to live. But there's a line as well, right?
There is, yeah.
Because you have to do some shit that you don't enjoy doing. You know what I mean? Like if you wanna lose body fat, okay, here's your macros, choose meals, choose foods and food types and whatnot that you want to eat, choose the dieting method that you want to do, but you still have to be in caloric deficit.
Yeah, which is
and
hard.
That's gonna suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Choose exercises that you want to do if you're trying to build muscle and you're trying to be in a hypertrophy rep range. You don't like squatting. Okay, don't squat, but you're going to have to do leg press or legs or whatever. Whatever.
Still going to have to get out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. Like it's still, you're still going to have to do shit that sucks. So like, how do you? I mean, with your clients, for example, firstly, where do you draw that line, and then secondly, what tips, methods do you use to encourage people to do the stuff that they perhaps don't enjoy doing?
Yeah, well, I try and make it not blunt's probably not a good word, but like
Yeah.
I try and be upfront with everyone, especially when I first start with a client. The first thing I say is, one, obviously I want you to enjoy the process, but two, it is going to be hard. Like I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it and say that, you know, I've got this program that you barely have to do any work. You only have to do 5 minutes a day, all this bullshit. Like, that's just not how it is. Like in the end of the day, if you want to get a result, you're going to have to put in the work, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
So they know that up front. But in terms of making sure it is sustainable, it does have to be enjoyable to an extent. I think measurable is something that needs to be in a variable that's in there as well. Like if I give someone, especially like I'll use females for an example, like my female demographic of clients has gone up a lot in the past kind of 12 to 18 months. And I'm really big on teaching girls how to lift properly. And a lot of the girls that come in have just done cardio their whole life, are scared of weights. Yeah. And I try and change that with them. So it's really cool to then see like 6 months down the track, girls coming in and saying like, all right, I want to hit, you know, X amount of weight for X amount of reps on deadlifts today. But because we have been building that up over time and they've got something that they can measure that progress off, all of a sudden, instead of coming in and going like, oh, I've got 20 minutes of cross trainer, in their head, they're going like, all right, last week I did 60 kilos for 5 reps. Today I want to do 60 kilos for 6 reps or 7 reps. So I think if they have that goal that they can work towards, it's measurable and it gives someone something for people to look forward to. But yeah, in the end of the day, like you said, we spoke about this last night at dinner as well in terms of business, like you're going to have to do the shit that you don't want to do sometimes.
Of course.
And that's just kind of all there is to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this sounds me. Remember when we went to Port Adelaide Footy Club?
Yeah.
And we had a look at their nutrition?
Yes.
And on the wall, they had McDonald's catalogs, like Subway catalogs, like you fast food chains. And they had like circled, like the nutritionist had circled ones that they're allowed to have.
You can have.
It's like you earn $600,000 a year. Like, pick up a fucking salad, mate. Like,
If you're surprised, it actually surprised me. I'm sure you guys are seeing the same thing, but working with like a number of footy players in particular, like nutrition at a lot of AFL clubs sucks. Like in terms of what they get told, in terms of how old school their approaches are, in terms of like how broad their guidelines are, in terms of what they should be eating. Like it's just, it blows my mind at how far off they are a lot of the time.
But that's like most performance sports.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not
100%.
just, let's just not pick on AFL.
Yeah.
Like you know, your background in basketball, like I think back to, you know, when I used to ball out, the nutrition was like, you know, you'd finish a game and it's like, go have a banana and a bottle of Coke.
that's what I'm saying.
You know
That's what I'm saying.
I mean?
Like,
Make sure
that's
you
what I'm
carry
saying.
around a Gatorade.
No, that's it. You
Is
know,
when
it's-
when you're talking about your clients and where do you draw the line of what that is? I mean, you go to that echelon, the line is $600,000 a year. Like, you're getting paid.
Yeah.
Exactly
You're getting
right.
paid each month the average person's yearly wage. Like
Well, and it's a short period of time as well.
Yeah.
Like your career, the span of your career is so short. So
And
surely you'd want to maximize your effectiveness as an athlete in that period of time, right?
And it comes back to that saying, like whatever the actual saying is. But like I tell my clients, like if you want something that you haven't had, you have to do something you haven't done.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you've come to me in the first place. There's a reason why all of these other diets haven't worked in the first place. So you need to do something different. Otherwise, nothing is going to change.
And it's interesting when we've done like the MassiveJoes challenge before, is we gave out calories to people.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is too many calories than what I've been on before. Or it's like, yeah, exactly. Like, we're not going to give you the exact same diet plan you've been following the last
hasn't worked.
last 3 years.
Yeah,
like,
exactly right.
It hasn't worked. You sign up to the challenge to lose weight. We give you calories breakdown, a diet breakdown, and then you're questioning why we've given it to you, and it just blows your mind really that people, like you just said, is you give them something different to do and they think, no, that's not what I normally do. Well, that's the problem. That's what you normally do.
What you normally do is not working. And that's the hard part about with training and nutrition, and nutrition in particular, is getting that buy-in from clients. And once you get the buy-in, that's when you see the results. But it can be hard.
Yeah. Well, it's like we were discussing this last night driving back from the gym. And one of the other things we discussed as well was around consistency, right? And I said to you, you know, I had some start of this year, I went away to the snow and went snowboarding. Then I got sick and shoulder injuries and this and that, whatever. And I was saying, you know, it feels so good to be like back in the groove, you know, back in consistent training, consistent eating. I said, you know, we were talking about how good that feels.
Yeah.
From a trainer's perspective, I guess 2 questions.
Yep.
Firstly, how do you encourage your clients to find consistency, you know, to get on that level of consistency to someone who's never kind of experienced it before?
Yeah.
And then secondly, how do you kind of keep your clients there with consistency?
Yeah.
You know?
Look, I think the first thing is, and I don't want to make it I don't want to make it sound like I'm making it easy for these guys, because I'm not. But I think sustainability has to be number one priority for the majority of people. Someone like us who are willing to do the things where we're outside of our comfort zone a lot of the time to get a result. It's, in the end of the day, it's just not what most people are going to do. But for me, I always say to a client, like, let's say, for example, over the span of a week, how many sessions do you want to do?
Yeah.
If you're a CEO of a big company and you're flat out, you've got a family, then it's obviously we're not going to be training 6 days a week for an hour and a half every day. It's just not going to work. So if you know that on an average week that you can get in 4 sessions, then our minimum is 4 sessions. Anything above that is a bonus, and we'll plan those, but we have to get our minimum of 4. And then that's consistency over time. So then making sure that I'm a big fan of planning. So with all my clients, I'll get them on a Sunday to try and plan out their week, at least roughly, in terms of whether it be nutrition, but particularly training, what their goals are for that week, and then also daily goals. So
awesome.
I'm huge on writing down 3 daily goals every single morning and then revisiting that at night, because not only is that going to be good for consistency in getting things done, but it's also just builds up that momentum with productivity. And I think momentum and consistency work so well together. If you're consistently being productive day in, day out, and it's like that saying that, you know, like the small things done well daily lead to big results. So if they're ticking off that checklist day in, day out, then they're going to see the results. So with consistency, I think it's really important that they are actually seeing results. So it's hard, especially for a new client, to be consistent with their training and their nutrition if they're not seeing anything. Yeah. Because they're just like, well, I've been doing this for, you know, even like they'll be like, I've been doing this for 2 weeks and I haven't seen anything yet. Yep. Well, you need to be consistent longer than that. But also it's on me to then make sure that in that 2 weeks, they are seeing some form of measurable progress to then keep them motivated.
So what do you use to A, keep people on track, and then B, to track their results?
So in terms of like I'll use my online clients as an example. So I have a community Facebook group, like a closed group for my clients, where they might share like meal ideas and all that type of stuff. But every single Friday they'll check in, and it's a pretty detailed check-in in terms of what I ask from them. And then I'll personally get back to them, whether it be a written response or a video response, which I find works really well because it's a bit more personal touch and it's easier to get across the point you're trying to get across. But in terms of measuring progress, like let's use scale weight for an example. Like I think you should either weigh yourself every single day or not at all. So I basically tell them, you either weigh yourself every day and take a weekly average, or we don't do it at all. And even then, when they're doing a weekly average, it's still, I try and get them to understand that it's down the list of importance. Like I want to look at how consistent you have been, you know, things like your waist measurement, how your clothes are fitting, progress photos, all that type of stuff, how you're actually sleeping, performing. These are all massive factors in progress, and it's not just a scale weight, which majority of the time is, especially with females, is the half the battle.
100%.
You know, like I'll have someone check in, they'll be like, yo, you know, my jeans are loose this week. I'm looking so good. I've trained 5 days this week. I've hit my macros every day, but the bloody scales haven't moved. Like, what should we change next week? And I'm like,
what do you mean? What should you change?
What should we change?
Throw the scales out. That's what you should change.
Exactly right.
That's the same with the challenges. People give feedback like, I'm not happy. Like, I haven't lost any weight. It's like, look at the pictures side by side. You look like a different person.
Yeah.
But I'm still 65 kilos in both photos. Like, I haven't lost any weight. So but you just don't get it. So
I try and whenever there is like a case study or an example of a client that I've had where their scale weight has stayed similar, but there's like night and day difference between their kind of before and after all their progress photos. I'll try and keep that as long as they're happy for me to use it, and then show new clients to this. I'll say like, look, over the span of 12 weeks, this person, their weight has barely changed, but look at this and tell me that their physique hasn't changed completely. But in terms of measuring progress, I'm a big fan of that. Like we spoke last night about body scans and stuff like that. I think can be very beneficial because people like to see numbers and see hard evidence of whether or not what they're doing is working. But on the other hand, I do think it's important that we just don't get caught up on numbers.
The numbers, yeah.
It's too hard because, even you said, Joe, last night with a prep where you clearly had lost a significant amount of body fat over, I don't know how many weeks it was.
3 weeks.
Yeah, and you got a scan and it told you gained body fat.
Yeah.
You clearly saw that and gone, well, there's zero chance that's happened.
It's impossible, yeah.
But for a lot of people, they'll see that and go, well, this is not working.
Yep.
So if we can change that focus and almost, it's kind of hard to get this across to clients as well. But like if I can get them to understand that it is a longer process and there does need to be consistency and patience over time to see the results and take their mindset off the end result and more so on the process. And it's like that trust the process type of thing. Like you just need to, and it does come down to, in terms of fat loss as well, like cortisol levels, because you're constantly stressed about whether or not the scales are going down, plays a significant role in whether or not you're holding water or whether you're not losing body fat as well. So eliminating as much stress as possible and making the process as smooth as possible, in the end of the day, is going to lead to better results. Well, it has in the case of my clients anyway.
Sure. So really good advice in terms of, I like the way that you kind of set people up with the tools to be consistent and measuring progress and whatnot. I'm interested in the point, and we see this with the MassiveJoes Challenge as well, where something happens in life, right, that kind of throws you off.
Yeah.
Right. So, you've set your clients up, they're doing their checklist every morning, every night. They got the different ways of measuring in place. So they're starting to see progress. They're consistent. They can see the payoff with the consistency. And then something happens in their life and it just completely derails them.
Yeah.
How do you deal with getting your clients through that?
And getting them back on track.
Getting them back on track. Exactly. Yeah.
And this is kind of personal preference for everyone, but I'm a massive fan of meditation.
Yep.
So we spoke about this yesterday as well. Like I couldn't recommend it anymore to everyone really, but I try and explain that to a lot of my clients that it's helped me because there's been stuff that I've gone through or whatever where it's thrown me off. Yeah. And just that daily meditation helps bring it back, but not everyone obviously wants to do that. So I'll try and explain a lot that, like a good or great month is far better than a perfect week. So you'll have people that have had like 5 or 6 days in a row where they've just been spot on, and then they'll have gone out and they've had like a couple of beers or something like that, and then it's just completely thrown them off. Yeah. And that's small scale. It could be something bigger, like something happening in the family or whatever it may be, and just throws people off straight away. Yeah. But if I can try and bring it back as quickly as possible and just get them to realize that in the grand scheme of things, like one day or even a week is not going to make a huge difference if you can bring it back. It's when it turns into a few weeks, a month, a few months where that's when it starts to derail. So I'll use the example of like overeating or binge eating. That's a big one. Most people the next day will then go drastically, like make drastic changes in terms of try and bring it back. So they're in their head, they're going, like I've stuffed up here, everything's ruined. Yeah. Today I'm going to do a heap of cardio, train a heap, and just completely cut my calories. So then a few days later, same thing happens. Yeah. Never-ending cycles. So I got this little theory that I like to use with my clients called the Goldfish Mentality. So once they've had a bad day, I think it's important to actually recognize it. Yeah. And I know I'm not too sure like if this is really answering your question because I know you're probably talking more so about something that's out of people's control.
No, this is exactly answering my question. Keep going.
Cool, yeah. So I think it's important to acknowledge it because you can't just go, all right, goldfish mentality every Saturday when I decide to go out with the boys and get blind. Yeah. But it's like, all right, this happened yesterday, I overate, or what was the reason for it? Let's move on now. The next day, back to normal. Like there's no making up for it at all. Like I'm really big on that. I don't think that regardless of whether you go 500 calories over your intake or whether you go 5,000 calories over, if you're prepping for a show, it's a different story.
Of course, yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. For the majority of people, I think the next day, back to your normal macros or meal plan or whatever nutritional approach you want to follow. Yeah. If you're meant to train, you train. If you feel like going for a walk or doing a bit of extra light cardio, feel free, but don't kind of bash yourself up for it and try and go to the opposite extreme because it's just never ending over and over and over again. Yeah. So as long as you acknowledge it and it doesn't happen over and over again, because it just comes down to creating that healthy relationship with food, and which is why I find personally, and with a lot of my clients, that having that more so of a flexible approach where you're not completely restrictive in terms of what you can and can't do with food and training, to be more of a sustainable approach. So there isn't that kind of stigma around like, all right, if I eat pizza, it means I need to eat a whole pizza and then the rest of the day is done.
Yeah.
It's, if I have a bit of pizza, I'll try and fit it within my calorie intake if I can. Even if I go over, then the next day back to normal, no stress. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Some great advice.
Goldfish mentality.
But this is, this is what we find, and probably a great kind of microscope on a magnifying glass is the Massive Joe's 10-week challenge, because it exemplifies this. But, most people, you set them up correctly, like you set your clients up. You give them all the tools, you give them ways of measuring. They're able to see the feedback loop is quite small from, the inputs, the effort that they're putting in, and the outputs, the results that they're getting. But then the difference, what kind of sets people apart from those that do achieve their health and fitness goals and those that don't, is how they deal with challenges, how they deal with things that kind of get thrown at them left field, whether it's a sickness, an injury, something happens to their kids, something happens in their family, something happens at work, these external stresses that most of the time you don't have a lot of control over. How do you navigate that? Yeah. And those people who are able to navigate that and do have, what you said, the goldfish mentality, I kind of think of it, I like to encourage people to kind of zoom out and get some perspective on the whole situation.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that's, like you said as well, a good month is better than a perfect week. Yeah. 100%. And that's just that zooming out perspective mentality. Those people who are able to do that and go, you know what, if I can just get through this, get shit back on track and continue to be consistent, in the big scheme of things, this is just a speed bump.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to look at even completely different examples. Someone like LeBron James, or Kobe Bryant, or someone like that. You can watch some of their games where they've had 3 quarters or even 3.5 quarters where they've absolutely stunk it up, turned it over, missed every shot. They're down, and then they're not thinking about any of that. They've let that go. Like, it's happened. You can't change it. Focus on what you can control. And that's something that I say a lot, is that just focus on what you can control. Like, if you've got an injury, then there's no point spending your week thinking about, oh, fuck, I can't train because I've got a sore leg. Or I can't train because I tore my hammy. Everything else goes out the door. Like, no, eat well. Do the things you can do. And then when you can control it, then focus on it then. But for now, it's not a priority, so just leave it. But yeah, to watch guys like professional athletes in any field, really, those absolute superstars where nothing phases them, where they're still going to take that last shot, they're still going to completely forget about all the shots they've missed, and then finish the game strong. And more often than not, it ends well for them. Compared to someone else, you look at another player who might be the complete opposite. They've missed their first couple of shots and that's it. They're not going to shoot it again.
They get caught up in it.
Or that one mistake turns into a string of mistakes for the rest of the game, and they're done because they're just mentally going over that same thing over and over again. But when it's out of your control, then it's not worth thinking about. And I can't even remember the saying, so I'm not even going to try because I'll stuff it up. But I listened to a podcast with Tony Robbins, and he brought up this really good point about how far too many of us just focus on, 1, what we don't have, and 2, what we can't control. It's absolutely worth none of our energy. So instead, focus on what you can control and what you do already have. That's all there is to do. Outside of that, it's a waste of time.
Just waste.
And energy.
Absolutely.
It's not going to achieve anything.
And thought.
But it's funny how people deal with those kind of things and deal with setbacks and deal with, is as you said, is the people that do try and go and do that extra cardio the day after, or I think that's probably the biggest thing, is when people try and take things back into their own hands. Especially, you'd see this as a personal trainer, is they've had a shit meal and they'll try and go and jig their own diets and not actually trust the process. Which I think is a downfall for most people in their diets, is they don't trust what the personnel was saying. It was funny. I remember, this is just a funny story, but I remember Joel was telling me that his best mate, or one of his good mates, used to go out and drink every day. I used to drink every Saturday night, and they'd go out the Sunday and just run as far as he could until he threw up, turn around and run home. I was thinking, is it really worth it going and drinking that Sunday night? And every weekend, every Sunday, he'd run until he threw up and then walk and run home again.
And it's funny. Sometimes I actually, I almost feel bad in terms of online coaching in particular, but I'll have someone check in, and one of the kind of things that they need to put in their check-in is their level of consistency out of 10 for that week with training and food. I'll have a check-in and it'll be like, training 10 out of 10, nutrition 5 out of 10, waist measurement has stayed the same, weight's the same. What do we change next week? Are you kidding me? Let's turn that 5 into an 8 or a 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
And then come back next week and then we'll reassess. So it's just like, you're making my job a bit too easy here, and I wish I could tell you more, but there is nothing more to it. Like
it's right there.
So how do you, this is, I guess, a bit more business, but how do you get guys? Do you find there much of a massive difference between your online clients and in face-to-face clients in terms of them sticking to their plans and sticking to, because I know when I've done online stuff before, is because you don't have that face-to-face interaction, it's very easy for people to lie. I mean, obviously if you're at the gym and you see them at the gym and you see them training and you see them putting in the work with you, whereas if they're just in a different state, it's very easy for them to say, oh yeah, I trained every week. But I mean, how do you deal with those kind of people who probably aren't quite as upfront with how they've been?
Yeah, it definitely varies a lot. What I've found with my coaching group in particular is that like a lot of them in there now, obviously when you get someone new, it's that whole learning process again, but for majority of them, it's just the accountability. They know what to do. They pretty much know what I'm going to tell them to do. They just want that accountability there. And something that I've found has worked really well from a business perspective and results for them is having that closed group where they can all engage with each other. And they can also see like, Neve checked in this week and he's had a shit week. It's not just me that's had a shit week, or you know what I mean? So it's knowing that you're not the only one. And if there's certain questions that some people have and others are most likely thinking the same thing, that everyone kind of goes through the same thing. So but it definitely in terms of online, especially with new clients, you can tell straight away when someone hasn't been compliant to what you've asked them to do. But and I just try and make it as comfortable for them as possible and make sure that they know that I would much rather you just be honest with me and tell me that you haven't stuck to what we've planned on doing this week than to just kind of bullshit me each week and just spin around in circles, because in the end of the day, you're the one that's not seeing the results. So, and the more and more you do that, just becomes a recurring pattern. Like anything else in life, like if you're just doing the same thing over and over again, you end up telling yourself a lie. It's like, oh, I've had a good week this week. Well, no, you really haven't. You haven't. Every single day, you might have hit your macros, but you've also eaten this, and this that you've chose not to track for the day. And that just becomes normal. So then all of a sudden, you're not just lying to me, you're lying to yourself as well. So if I can make it as comfortable as possible for them, and I've found the groups worked really well.
Definitely. I want to, and we've kind of gone there already, but I want to kind of change gears a little more and head towards the business side of things. And in particular, you've been able to carve yourself, a pretty good reputation in the personal training space of the health and fitness industry, which is undoubtedly incredibly saturated. There's a lot of PTs trying to, do something, get their name out there, grab attention, build a client base. You've done it very, very well. And, you train some pretty well-known people as well. How have you done that? What advice can you give to the PTs listening right now going, fuck, man, like Danny's killing the game? How did Danny kill the game? Because I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I think there's a few main things that I would say, and this is what I'm getting more and more kind of new PTs kind of come to me for advice, which is cool, which is pretty cool. First thing is that, one, especially with social media now, a lot more focus has just gone on putting out crazy content and posting on social media, and the focus has gone away from actually being a good trainer. So even now, like and I don't think my following is big at all in comparison to a lot of people, but like now that my following has started to grow a bit, people come up to me and kind of ask me stuff about like influencer stuff. And I'm just like, in the end of the day, like I'm a trainer. This like the social media stuff is just like a byproduct of what I'm doing as a trainer.
As a professional,
But for me, it's still about making sure that anytime I can, any opportunity I can get to increase my knowledge on training and nutrition, I'm doing that. Because in the end of the day, I'm providing a service to the clients. I'm not there to promote them on Instagram. I'm there to actually get them a result. So what we spoke about last night is that, I've been doing this now. This is my seventh 6th or 7th year as a PT. So it definitely happened a lot slower than what I expected. But a lot of people don't see that now. They'll follow me on Instagram and see like, oh, he's training X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
How good is this? I want to do that.
Yeah.
But they don't see the last 6 or 7 years where I've been like building up consistently, getting up at 4:30 every morning, doing the hours, like going to all the seminars, doing the knowledge side of things as well, and actually putting in the hours, training clients, training myself and being consistent with it all. And consistency and patience is like the biggest thing that most people don't want to hear, but it's been the biggest contributing factor to how I've got to where I am now. And we even spoke about it with the podcast in terms of like not seeing much progress over time, but just keep doing the same thing, but be consistent with it. And even with the social media side of things, like I use my social media as a way to provide value and relatable content to people. But even that, like with my Instagram, I started that 5 or 6 years ago and have put out a post pretty much at least one post every single day. As soon as stories has come up, I fill that with just helpful content, whether it be lifting technique, whether it be advice about nutrition or whatever, just day in, day out. And it's just that consistency and actually being patient and not trying to go for the quick sell or whatever it may be as a PT. And then the other thing that has just like literally changed everything for me is actually just not being afraid of someone saying no. Like when people ask me about training like higher profile people or whatever, especially early on, a lot of those opportunities, and the same thing with some of the guests I've had on the podcast, has just been me reaching out to people with no fear of them saying no. Because someone said this to me not long ago, is like the fear that a lot of people have about failure, whether it be someone saying no or something not happening or them losing something, has already happened if you haven't asked. Yeah. So if I wanted to do a podcast, like even when I reached out to you, when we did the podcast a couple of years ago, like if I wanted to do that podcast with you and I'm in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to ask because what if he says no? Yeah. Then it's still the same result. I've already that's already a reality because we still haven't done it. Yeah. So a lot of there's been a few opportunities that have come about which have pretty much drastically changed the path of what my kind of life looks like at the moment because I've just reached out to people. And there's been so many people that have like said no, and I think the big thing for me is that it's always about providing value first, and basically just providing value. And then what's a good example? I'll use Will Sparks as an example. I was training a friend of his, Mitch Orv. I don't know if you've watched any of the Angry Dad videos. Yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah. And his girlfriend as well now. So,
yeah. So I trained Chloe as well. Yeah, exactly. But even Mitch, for example, like he had a huge following already, and someone tagged me in a post of his saying that like he wanted help with nutrition. So I literally DM'd him on Instagram, said, "Hey man, would love to help you with your nutrition, and hope you get some results. Like what have you done in the past? Blah blah blah." And he almost wrote back as if to say like, do you not want anything in return, or like, thanks heaps. So I'm like, look, he wrote back and said, I'd love your help. I'll put up a post for you on Instagram. I'm like, look, don't worry about the post. Let's just worry about getting your results first. If you're happy with how everything goes, then that'd be sweet. If not, like I'm not stressed. Like I just want to help you first. Yeah. And in my mind, obviously he has a good following. So I'm like, if I can get him results, it's going to help me with my business. But I'm not, the first thing I think is not like, oh, I'm going to try and get exposure out of this person. It's like, I want to genuinely help you. And then after training him, I eventually met Will, get talking to Will about how I'm training one of his mates. And then all of a sudden Will wants to come and train. And then that obviously leads to more opportunities. Train Mitch's girlfriend now, who she just happens to have a huge following as well, which then leads to a larger female audience. So like all these things just kind of like gradually just happen.
Well, they don't just happen. You're driving them, right?
I am driving them, but if I don't send that DM to Mitch saying like I want to help you, or if I send him a DM saying, hey, I'll help you with nutrition in return for an Instagram post, none of this stuff happens. Yeah. So like it's funny sometimes to like just kind of reverse engineer like where things are at now and bring it all the way back to like, oh, I messaged this guy that day and asked if he wanted to catch up for coffee. He brings up this leads to that, and then all of a sudden this has just turned into this. Yeah. Which is pretty crazy.
You can't join the dots looking forward. You can only join them looking back, right?
Yeah, and I think I don't know whether it's an ego thing for some people or whether it's just fear of rejection. I don't know what it is, but like a lot of people won't do that because either they think they're too entitled already, or they are worried about people saying no or things not working out, and that's just something that I haven't worried about. Another, I feel like I'm just telling stories here, but like another thing
but this is the juice right here, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I'll tie this all together for you because I'm just like my mind is like I'm trying to find the common denominators here. But keep going.
Even with my podcast, I listened to a podcast called the Small Business Big Marketing podcast by Timbo Reid, which has been like a really popular podcast in Australia. And I emailed him one day and just said, look, I don't know, I didn't even know where he lived. I knew he was in Australia, but I said, if you're in Melbourne and you want to train and you need help with any training, I'd love to take you for a few sessions and set you up with the program or whatever. And then that was it. And then I said, like, I've got a podcast. It'd be really cool if after one of our sessions, if you can kind of just give me some feedback on it, and that's it. A couple of months later, he emailed back, and then we went back and forth for literally like 2 or 3 months until eventually he came in, and then now he's one of my clients and introduces me to other people and helps me in my podcast and gives me some pointers and absolutely tore my podcast to shreds, which was just very disheartening. But in the end of the day, like it was perfect. Yeah.
Right?
So again, it's just like kind of taking that, not even a risk. It's not even a risk. Literally like asking a question.
Yeah.
It just leads to so much more.
It's funny because, you know, you tell these stories and obviously the stories you're telling are the stories of success, right? The person you reached out to who said yes, the email, the DM you said that you got a positive response. Yeah. But I'm 100% certain that there's been many, many more where you've reached out to people and you have been rejected or they have said no. Way more. So I just want the listeners and the viewers to firstly understand that is there's a lot more underneath the iceberg than the tip that you see above the water. And that's always the case across every single successful business that I have been able to talk to, you know, the people behind it. That's always the consistent thing is, man, there's so much shit beneath the surface that you just never hear about, right? Because you see the tip of the iceberg, you see the successes, and you see the positives of everything, and those are the stories that you tell as well. Because you know those are the ones that people
but there's without a doubt there's been way more messages, emails, even talking in person opportunities that just have not happened. Compared to the ones that have,
of course,
without a doubt, and
10 times, and probably 100 times.
Oh yeah, and the other side of that as well is, especially with people that are just starting out as a personal trainer now, is I've done so much shit for free. I've like done so many things that have not paid a cent, and whether it be for someone or whether it just be, you know, like we spoke about last night, like just trial and error with things that have taken up so much of my time. Potentially could have been used trying to make money or whatever it is, but in the long term, like that's now led to the point where it's helped me get in a position where I can be making more money for things that in the past I've been doing for free.
So that was going to be my next question is with someone who is looking to start an in-person or one-on-one face-to-face personal training business because I've got my PT qualifications like 10 years ago. And I just fucking hated personal training. I enjoyed being in the gym, but I hated training people in the gym. But the thing is you hear two sides of the story, and even recently talking to people and just getting people, because we do have a lot of personal trainers that watch and potential business owners that want to be doing what you're doing. But when people are looking at initially building their client base and their clients, one-on-one clients, in your opinion, what's your thought on like free sessions and those kind of initiatives? Because you look at two sides of the story, and you look at your brand worth. Like if you're Supreme aren't giving away backpacks for free to try and get Supreme out into people's hands, they're charging $300 for a Supreme backpack, and you buy it. If not, well, you're not the people we're trying to target. Same with personal training. Do you start or did you recommend at all like offering free sessions to people, or without trying to look to devalue your brand and say, look, I know within myself, I've got 10 years worth of experience. I've got these qualifications. My price is $100, take it or leave it. Or do you say, look, everyone, I'm giving away a free session or 2 free sessions or 1 free session. Come, let me book you in. I've got 20 spots available this week and just pump it out and hopefully transition them into clients. Or do you look at the value side of things?
I think initially you have to have some form of social proof. And I did this with online coaching and PT. Like there was definitely sessions, and it wasn't like a heap, but it was like a select few at the start where I got a good group of people that I knew were going to actually put in the work and give me some return for the work that I was putting in, not financially, but in terms of results, and build up that social proof. But then once you've built up that social proof, I think it can be pretty damaging to your brand in particular and the value of your service if you're just constantly offering free stuff. So like now, I never offer any free sessions. I don't do any like 2 for the price of 1, any of that type of stuff. And some people look at that and go like, well, why not? But I'm like, well, like you just said before, you look at the people that are the best at what they do. They're not doing that because they're what their service is offering is valued. But I think the social proof side of things is massive, and something that I learned really early on is that you have to actually take care of the clients that you have now. So a lot of personal trainers are that focused on the next client or the next 30 clients they want, or they want a full book, and they're not even valuing the ones they have now. So like taking care of what you actually have, like I said before, focusing on what you do have, not what you don't have, will then lead to think more down the track. But if I've got a client that I'm getting results with, they're absolutely loving it. And to this day, the best form of marketing for me is referrals. Like people talk. If I'm training Joe and he's seeing awesome results, he's gonna talk, or people are gonna ask him what he's doing. So whereas if I'm training Joe and 3 months down the track he's like, oh fuck this, like Danny's here and all he's worried about is trying to get another client, or he's late to our sessions, he's more focused on this than he is our sessions, and he just wants to put me in anywhere so he can get new clients in here. Like, you're going to leave eventually, or you're not going to go and rave about me to someone else.
Yeah. The word of mouth's not going to be good.
Yeah.
It's going to be either non-existent or negative.
So I think in terms of making sure your brand is valued over time, it definitely needs to move away from that free stuff. And it may not even necessarily be the actual training, like giving up your time for someone else for free, but it's all the other little things outside of that you do to build up your brand that you're not getting paid to do.
And you're the perfect example of that. And this is when I just spoke a few minutes ago about tying the common themes together.
Yeah.
2 of the things that you've done in all the stories that you tell, and through practice of what you're actually doing. And I do want to talk about the podcast in particular. We'll get there in a second.
Yeah.
But the 2 things that you're consistently doing is firstly adding value in the primary sense is actually, how can you, that's your mindset. You can just see it, is how can I add value? It's never about how can I extract value. It's how can I add value to a particular client or to a particular group of people or to social media or whatever it is. You're always trying to add value. And the second thing you're doing is you're actually taking action.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of personal trainers, I would imagine, that come to you and they come to us for advice as well. I don't know fucking why, but they do. Is firstly, they're always thinking about extracting value, so, how do I get the full book? How do I generate X number of dollars per session, per week, whatever it may be, instead of thinking about, how can I add value to people in the first instance? And the second thing is they sit around and twiddle their fucking thumbs and don't actually do anything.
Yeah.
And that can be, fear of failure. It can be fear of self-doubt. It can be ego, like you said. It can be fear of other people's opinions. Whatever it is, there's something that prevents them from actually doing, from actually taking action.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're a prime example of if your primary focus is to add value to people and you're actually willing to do shit.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
This is what can happen.
Exactly right. And as I was saying, it doesn't necessarily have to be trading a session for free. It could be like, especially now with how powerful social media is and the podcasting and everything, it could be spending 2 hours every single day putting together content, building an email list, putting out helpful content on Instagram and not just pictures of yourself looking good. It could be starting a podcast where you are providing value and starting to grow that audience, because even now, like I'll get people that come to me and I never now, sorry, that was shocking English, but I never, English good, never like try and get new clients now. Like I never put out a post saying like looking for new personal training clients.
It's funny to see like the same people like just had 3 spots open up. I'm like, you just had 3 spots open up last week.
Yeah.
I got
Always 3 spots opening up.
limited to 3 spots only. It's like, but you can see straight through that kind of shit.
You can see straight through it.
Which is, I suppose, different than what you're going to say. But it's just,
But if you're providing
just,
value in some way, people will come to you eventually for help, like we spoke about last night. Like a lot of the inquiries I get now about personal training is not like, it's definitely not, I saw this ad on Instagram that you put up asking for new PT clients, and I saw it and I came straight in. It was like, been following your stories on Instagram for the past 6 months. It's been listening to your podcast. It's been on your email list for the last 12 months. And you provided so much value. You helped me with this, you helped me with that. And for me, it might just be something, and for you guys as well, it could be like something in your head that you're like, oh, everyone knows this, but they don't. It could be something really small, but someone might see that and go, that could completely change the way that they train or the way that they 100%. Eat, and for the better. So that's why when I do put out content, it is like, is it going to be helpful? Is it relatable? And like shareable? Is it going to have some value to this person, or at least one person that sees it? Because that could ultimately then lead to them coming back to you, and that's what I've found. Look, is happening now.
From a real hardcore business perspective, right? And this applies to any business. If you want to convert somebody, if you want to turn somebody from a non-customer into a customer, the first thing that you need is their attention. Right? If you don't have their attention and they don't know who you are, they don't know who your business are, they don't know what you do, you're never, ever going to be able to convert them. Impossible. So then the question becomes, okay, well, how do I get someone's attention? You add value to them somehow. Right? You produce something that's valuable to them, because attention is the most valuable asset we have. When we're giving someone our attention, we're giving them our time. Right? And time is the most valuable, more valuable than money. You can't get more of it. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's the most valuable asset we have. The only way you're going to get somebody to give up their time and therefore their attention to you is to produce something equally as valuable. Right? And I think a lot of people just miss that. So they'll put up a post to get people's attention. Like, I got 3 spots left in my fucking book this week. That's not adding, it might grab people's attention, but it's not adding value. Whereas you're doing your Instagram and your Instagram stories and your podcast, and you're just continually adding as much value as you can to get people to give up their time, to get people to give up their attention. And then when you go from the hardcore business line of trying to convert someone into a customer, it's fucking easy. They've just given you their most valuable asset. Now you're asking for their second or third most valuable asset, which is being them paying you for a service.
That's it. Like, and this is probably a bad example because they're such a big company and big brand, but you look at Apple. Apple have never got ads on TV or online going like, here's a new iPhone, this is all the features, you should come and buy it, it's only this much. It's like, fuck, there's 1,000 people waiting out front of the Apple store because they heard there's a new phone out today and they don't even know what the features are, they just want it. So it's like, for me, it's the same thing. Like, I want someone to email me or DM me saying like, hey, do you have any availability? Can I come and train with you? Not like, how much do you cost? I'm never going to write back to someone and be like, oh, come on, like, come and train, I'll give you a discount. Like, but like, no.
So with your content, for example, is how much time do you put into each post? I mean, because the biggest thing we probably see, and Joe calls it analysis paralysis, is they spend too long agonizing over the perfect angle, and obviously you know, being a bodybuilder as well, is the right downloading. Do my abs look like they're popping? You know? Is my GH gut not fucking hanging out too much? Like, these kind of stuff. But like, how long do you spend on each post? Or how do you plan it in advance? Because I know you do a lot of videos of your clients training in form, and girls obviously doing, and you explain the exercise and stuff. I mean, is that something? Do you sort of worry too much about creating Apple type content, whereas they've got the perfect picture, or is it more just, I just want to get my message out to people? And
I think
because that's the main thing we see is a lot of people say, I don't know what to post, whereas like, obviously there's other people who are like, I just, like you said, you're just giving them valuable information.
I used to try and like plan it too much. I used to think way too much about what I was going to post, make sure every post was perfect. Now people ask me like, oh, you know, like, what's your post schedule? Like, how do you figure out what content you're going to do? And this is it, literally. Like, we'll be here and we'll talk about something, and I'll be like, fuck, that's a good idea. I'll go to the airport after this and I'll write a daily email and be like, I was just in MassiveJoes HQ and we're talking about this, and this is something that I reckon could help you guys. Or with my stories, I'll be in the gym with the client and we'll be doing an exercise, and I'll be like, I reckon this, people always fuck up on this. Get a video, draw a few arrows on it.
Yeah, so you always got your lines on there. You got your lines on there, and you've got your Because I've seen you do all that kind of stuff with like the back and
on straight away. Like there's no like, it doesn't need to be polished. Like if I'm looking at content that's helping me, I'm not going like, fuck, it's a good filter. I'm going like, I always stuff this exercise up. This is going to help me a lot.
Yeah.
And I have like started to hire like a videographer to come in and get some good content now, because like I think it still is to an extent important to have like good content. But in the end of the day, if it's going to be helpful, like you're better off having. Do you follow any of Grant Cardone's stuff?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So I think he's a really good example. Like he just puts out so much stuff, and he's not worried about whether or not it's the perfect content. Even his podcast, like it's a big podcast, but his sound quality is shit. But the content is awesome, and to an extent, I think it needs to be good enough quality, obviously, that it's consumable.
Yeah.
But if the content is good and it's helpful, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So like my emails is literally like, for example, yesterday I put up a thing on my story asking what topics people want to hear about for daily emails. I just screenshot all the answers, or like anytime I get a question through a DM, I'll just screenshot it and have it saved in my phone. And then I'll just go in and be like, oh, this person asked this, write an email about this. Or with my posts on Instagram, it's just whatever I think of at the time or whatever's happening. I'm not going like on a Monday, like, all right, on Monday I'm going to post a picture of my meal. On Tuesday I'm going to post a picture of my abs. On Wednesday I'm going to do this. It's just like
on the fly.
On the fly, yeah.
Yeah.
As a PT, I think there's just endless opportunities to post good, helpful content. And I kind of stole this off Gary Vee, I guess, or the saying anyway. But like, I don't create content. I just document it.
Yeah.
Just document what I do. And I think for most people, that's going to work far, far better. And especially in terms of being productive with your time. If you're spending an hour sitting there trying to figure out what you're going to write in your Instagram caption, you could have wrote an email, you could have recorded a podcast, you could have put out 3 Instagram posts, stories, or even just spent time listening to a podcast and learning new things. Or like I just try and I try and get as much out of my time as I can.
Yeah.
Just a more personal question, but talking about time and value is where do you see yourself in the next sort of 12 months, 3 years, 5 years? What do you want to be focusing on, or where do you see yourself going?
I think for me, it's still very, I wouldn't say unknown, but there's not really an end destination. I think at this point, like ideally I want to continue to grow my podcast so it can allow me more time to put more time into it. Continue to grow my online coaching business so I've got a bit more freedom to travel and get content in other places and experience new things. So I really enjoy LA. So the last few years I've been trying to extend my time in LA. So a goal for me was to spend 6 months of the year there and 6 months of the year here in Melbourne or wherever in Australia. It doesn't even necessarily need to be LA, but just not in Australia, because I think that helps so much in terms of getting new content, new experiences, building up better relationships and networking. And I've probably been toying more and more with the idea of starting up my own facility in Melbourne, because I can't ever see myself not personal training to an extent, like, because I just enjoy it. I just enjoy helping people face to face. And like I said, it just gives you so many opportunities to get good content. Like if I wasn't personal training, like a lot of my content is based around, like I said, just documenting what I'm doing day to day.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of at the point now where I could probably hopefully start up my own.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the thing is I guess personal training is a big thing where scalability comes into it. Because the thing is you're only limited to so many hours per day. Yeah. You're only limited, let's be honest, is like 10 hours, 12 hours.
Time for money.
10 to 12 hours is fucking 6 till 6 at night. Like that's about, that back to back sessions is almost impossible. You need to have that break in between. So the thing is, obviously, either you have to increase your rate, so $100 an hour, $150 an hour, $200 an hour, is that stage there, or the thing that I guess has always sort of stuck with me, and we've seen it a lot within this fitness industry as well, is people that say they've got 400 clients. Like 400 clients, you divide that by 5 days, that's 80 clients a day. You divide that by your 10 working hours, you're getting back to 8 clients in an hour. You're giving each client 8 minutes of the day. The numbers don't add up. So the thing is the value you're giving that client then is how do you sort of see yourself doing that with obviously getting more clients, but then still providing that same value as when you had 10 clients and you're giving them everything. I mean, the thing that sort of is you saw is like, let's go back to Devon Physique, for example. And you found out Devon Physique had nothing to do with his personal training business. He had his personal assistant replying with all the text messages pretending she was Devon. Yeah. He had a nutritionist replying to about all the emails and that kind of thing is then all of a sudden you're not really giving value to your clients and sort of it's not Danny as the personal trainer, as Danny's the Indonesian Fiverr hire person.
No, 100%.
replying to emails.
That's
in India.
definitely something that I wouldn't say that I struggle with, but it's something that I can think about a lot. So me in particular, like, because I do put out a lot of content and I feel as though a lot of it is relatively relatable and I put my own kind of personal spin on it, is I do everything myself. Which there's definitely things that I need to start delegating to other people that help me out with. But in terms of my content and my coaching, it's all me. And I think it always would be. It always will be, because the clients coming to me for my services, not for like staff services or someone else. So in terms of personal training, like I've already started to work on that a little bit. Like I don't work in the gym on Fridays anymore because I want to make sure I'm keeping the quality up for my online clients, because they check in on Fridays.
Yeah.
So instead of doing 3 hours after work on a Friday, replying to people with half-assed replies, it's like, all right, I've got the full day now to do it. Come up, and it gives me time to be productive and come up with ideas for the podcast or whatever. With personal training now, a lot of the inquiries I get is obviously people wanting the same times.
Yeah.
So if I see them as a good fit to fit in with other clients, I'm now kind of saying like, all right, on Monday and Wednesday, I train this group of girls who are predominantly working on strength training, and we do a bit of conditioning at the end. This is the level they're at. It's going to be, a quarter of the price of what you pay for a one-on-one. If you're happy to do it, then that way we can still train. My hourly rate goes way higher than what it would be. I'm still helping people and they still get the opportunity to train. So there's a way of doing it there. And then other than that, man, like I think with the online coaching, there's definitely opportunities there to obviously increase the amount of money you're making, but it is hard because I do try and keep everything quite personalized. Scalability is not always great, but I think in terms of with the podcast and with the way social media is going, there's definitely potential there to be trying to make more money that way and have a bit more freedom to put time in and keep the quality with your coaching and all that type of stuff. Because as soon as the quality drops off, like that's when I start to look at like, all right, something needs to change, which is why I got out of the gym on Fridays and try and make sure that I'm allowing myself enough time. Like I used to, like most personal trainers probably, like I used to just work any hours someone wanted to train. Whereas now it's like, all right, I don't work any later than 7 p.m. This is what time I start. I have to have this time of the day where I can do my emails and stuff and that's it.
Yeah. You kind of set it up how you want.
And that's probably one thing I should have mentioned earlier with PTs is that you need to, I think it's important to have that structure early on. As tempting as it is to just go like, oh, I want to be busy, I want to do as much as possible. Like it has to be sustainable over a longer period of time. So that's something that I didn't do well early on, as I was just basically a slave to the client. Yeah. Whereas now I'm like, even if it means I have to miss out on potential money, like this is what I'm going to do because I need to make sure I'm getting a certain amount of sleep. I need to be able to get my training in. I still need to have some form of life outside of work, all that type of stuff. And that needs, I think that structure is really important because it's pretty easy to just go like, yeah, I'll do whatever just to try and make a bit of extra cash.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Tell us about the Fitness and Lifestyle podcast. I'm interested for people to hear about this because I think that this is, once again, a great example of who you kind of are as a person and the elements that have kind of led to your success in your career. Fitness and Lifestyle podcast, currently one of the top podcasts in Australia in the health and fitness space on iTunes.
So it's pretty much almost 3 years ago I started it. So I've done, I think it's last night's episode was 165, I think.
So pretty much, or even more than an episode a week every week.
Yeah, so it's been at least one episode a week for nearly 3 years. Yeah.
So there's your consistency.
Yeah.
Straight up.
So and it kind of came back to what you said before about taking action. So I'd had this idea of doing a podcast because I just started listening to them myself. So I think I was listening to like Lewis Howes and maybe Gary Vee or Joe Rogan probably. And I heard on one of their podcasts, one of them said something along the lines of like, just taking action, we're not waiting until tomorrow to do something you can do today. And then the podcasting industry, even now, is still quite small, but then was just almost non-existent, especially in Australia.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you hit us up for a podcast, I'm like, just want to like talk and record it and put it somewhere. Okay, cool, exactly. Man. I'm down for whatever, but yeah, sweet. Let's do it.
Yeah. So I had a look into the podcast to see like what else was around in Australia, in particular with health and fitness, and there was like nothing at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know what I'm really going to do, but I'm like, I know that there's a lot of content that could be helpful to people. There's heaps of questions I get asked daily about training and nutrition. Yeah. I'm just going to start it and see what happens.
Yeah. And once again, that's you with the primary mindset of trying to add value.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got the primary mindset of trying to add value. You've got, I want to do something. So actually taking action. Yeah. And then the next minute you start this fitness and lifestyle podcast and you're doing at least an episode a week every single week for 3 years. Yeah. And now 3 years later, you got one of the top podcasts in the country. Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So like it's, and we spoke about this yesterday, like so I literally, the day I started, I went onto Google, I typed in how to start a podcast, and there was a blog that came up step by step. So went through all the steps that day, and by that night, I'd submitted it to iTunes, recorded like the first episode. Yeah. And it's funny, like people now will be like, "Oh, I just found your podcast." Like binging it and working my way through all the episodes. I'm just like, all right, stop at 50 because they're fucking hard to listen to the first 50. But like I remember
start at 51. Go forward.
Early on, like I was like recording them. I was just kind of, like I said, answering questions, and I had in mind that I really wanted to. It was almost a bit selfish. I was like, I want to do the podcast and do it with really cool people that one are going to add value to the listener, but two, like that I can learn from in both fitness and lifestyle. And initially it was business too. So I probably did a bit more business early on, which is now just kind of all joined to one anyway.
Of course, yeah.
So started recording every single week, like I said. And at that point I was reaching out to a lot of people to try and get them on the show, and managed to land some really cool guests. But even then, like the first 12 to 18 months was slow. Like downloads were not really going up, even though in my eyes, the content was unreal. Like some of the guests I had on, I was like, fuck, the show's going to blow up this week. Yeah. End of the week, nothing. Nah, shit. Back to the drawing board. So
try again next week. Yeah.
So just keep going. And then, but like in my mind, like I said, the guests that I had on and the content that was there, I was like, eventually this podcasting is surely going to go well. And when it does, the content's good enough so people will get value and people are going to listen. So I just kept doing it, and basically that's what's happened. So even now podcasting is still quite small, but it's only going to get bigger. And still putting out an episode a week. It's led to so many cool opportunities, like networking with people like you guys. Absolutely. People across the world. Like when I go to LA, I really try and put in a lot of time to get as many done as I can with cool people. Yeah. Which is just a great way to build relationships and meet new people and add value, like to not only the listener but myself. Like I've learned so much stuff from the podcast in terms of guests that I've had on. Like sometimes I record and I'm like, shit, I got to go back
and listen to
and
it.
Actually listen to it again and then like take some notes because there's so much good stuff in there. Yeah. And it's just such a cool feeling now to have people like email or DM me saying that like I've listened to the podcast and it's unreal, or got so much out of this episode. Whereas like, you know, I initially just started literally just to try and help people and meet some people and network. Whereas now it's actually having such a big impact, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Which is actually, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome feeling.
Yeah. It's
it's enjoyable. This has been enjoyable. Like,
that's
you know
the other thing. We're just sitting down and having the chat. You know what I'm saying? So, but I say the same thing to you and Joel when we're doing, you know, when we don't have a guest on. And then when we do have guests on as well, I'm like, I kind of do the podcast for selfish reasons, you know, like I've got questions that I want answers to, you know, and sometimes just, you know, putting an hour or so aside and being able to talk to Neve and Swole or having a guest on and literally like asking questions that I don't know the answers to, that by the end of the podcast, now I know the answers to.
Yeah, and so the chances are so many other people had the same questions.
Yeah, and then you guys get to listen to it or watch it and you know, hopefully get some value out of it as well.
Yeah, it was funny early on as well, like similar to what you said about the Instagram post. Like I was like, no one, surely, especially when I do episodes on my own. Yeah. I'm just like, why would, like, people aren't going to want to listen to this. Yeah. But then sometimes the feedback I get, like, they're some of the best episodes, the biggest episodes. Ones, so like if you are considering starting a podcast or even putting content out on social media and you think that no one's going to want to see it, like there's always someone that's going to get, if it's some form of value, it's always going to be someone that wants to know the answer to what you're providing. Yeah.
And I mean, I think that goes for everything though, especially as we said and as we mentioned last night, is it comes down to training, comes down to nutrition, comes down to you starting your personal training business. I mean, you didn't start with with any clients, your online clients, you didn't have any online clients to start with. You had one client, 2 clients, 3 clients, whatever it may have been. The thing is you didn't give up after the first 3 months because you only had one client.
Exactly,
you just kept pursuing and working on it. And as you said, putting in those hours, and the same with the podcast. If you're getting 10 downloads, 20 downloads, 20, and as you said, it stalled for a while at 500, I think you said it was. And then it could have been very easy for you to give up after the first 24 months.
Exactly.
And just think, fuck, this isn't working, not getting anything from it. But yeah, without you knowing, that 50 can turn into 500, can turn into 50,000.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's the same as that little picture you see with the dude picking at the axe, and on the other side is that diamond mine, and then
You never know how close
turns
you
around
are,
and starts walking away. You never know how close you are to that breakthrough, and but it's really that consistency. Is nothing happened overnight, and then I think, as we've said before, there's a lot of people, and we've said in previous podcasts, is people just comparing themselves to others on social media and comparing themselves to what they see. And they'll see you and say, oh, look, Danny's in the top 10 and I've got mine and I'm not there yet. And they get disheartened because they're not where you are. Without you saying is, same with your personal training, as you mentioned, is people don't see the time that you put in behind the scenes. They don't see the 3 years. With MassiveJoes, people don't see Joe starting in 2005, which is 14 years ago. This is
exactly right.
This building,
end result.
This building didn't just pop up. It's 14 years of slogging away and 20-hour days. And I think that's the main thing people have to remember is even starting something. And if they're looking at starting a podcast, looking at starting a personal training business, looking at starting an online business or a supplement business, is they have to look at it. Look, there's going to be a lot of times that is going to be in a lot of hours that are going to go into it where you're not going to get any reward from it initially.
Yeah.
But it's that consistency that pays off time and time again. Same as I guess us guys in the gym is we probably have that, I don't know what it is, 80-20 rule, I guess. We'll go use that rule. But like 80%, there's a couple of days where I don't eat well or don't train well and stuff, but still that consistency, the 80% year after year, 15 years of training, it pays off. So.
And as well as that, like I think with social media as well, people do see the 0.5% of the population that it does happen overnight and go, oh, that could happen to me, and then get disheartened when it doesn't. But in actual fact, you can basically forget about that. That's not happening.
Yeah.
Well, it's like people buying a lottery ticket thinking they can become a millionaire. I mean, it's not going to happen.
There's a lot more people who have become millionaires through hard work, consistency over time than there are who have become millionaires through a lotto ticket. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You look at the numbers. So, well, man, Danny, thank you so much for your time. I think there's some real gems in this episode, and I think probably the biggest one, as you were saying, Neve, is just the fact that you guys have been able to listen to a guy who's done very well for himself in both the fitness and the business space through primarily trying to add as much value to the universe as possible, taking actual action and never giving up and just being consistent.
Not being afraid to hear the answer no.
Yeah, well, and that's part of taking action, right? Is it's like so many people don't take action because of fear of failure, fear of self-doubt, ego, fear of other people's opinions, whatever it is. But, this guy over here, I don't give a single fuck.
No fucks
anyway. Danny, give yourself, where can people find you, man? Obviously, we've mentioned the Fitness and Lifestyle podcast.
Yeah.
Probably the best place to tune into that is iTunes, but you're also on Spotify now, right?
Yeah,
as well.
iTunes and Spotify are the two platforms worth going to. And then my Instagram is just at DJK Fitness.
Yep.
So I do try and put out a lot of content on there, and then you can access my email and website and stuff through there as well. So they're probably the two platforms worth going to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your time, man.
Pleasure.
Neve, we've been getting some real good uptake through listeners of the MassiveJoes Show and viewers on the YouTube channel of the MassiveJoes Show. If you found value from this episode, the one thing that we always ask is, firstly, tell a friend in person. We're humans and shit. So tell somebody that, you've been listening to the MassiveJoes Show and you're getting some value from it, and they should listen as well. And the second thing is Instagram stories at the moment has been really good for us. So if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher or wherever you're listening, take a screenshot of it, post it in your Instagram story, tag Danny, DJK Fitness, tag Neve Movement, tag myself, Joseph Mencel, tag MassiveJoes, fucking tag everything, man. Just like have a screen full of tags. People won't be able to see what's underneath them. But if you have found value, definitely, spread the word. That's all we ask. Spread the word. Tell your friends in person. Tell your friends on social media. and continue to help us spread the value of the Massive Joe Show podcast. Danny, thank you once again, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's been an absolute
Loved
pleasure. Neve, my apostle.
Better come with a better one next week.
Next week's going to be fire. Thank you, brother. Until next time, where we're coming to and from, man.
MassiveJoes.com.
Stay massive. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Massive Joes Show. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform, whether it be SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, Stitcher, or TuneIn. And if you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Massive Joes Show, ensure that you give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting platform. Until next time, we're coming to you from MassiveJoes.com. Stay massive.